Hello, this is Don Milne. I'm making this training video to introduce you to 10 useful niche World War II research sites. So people that may have a background in studying World War II may already be familiar with these, but if you're not, this will give you some useful sites depending on what type of a name you're working on. That would be a useful website that you would want to visit to do your research. So number one is a website called Scribd.com, and I use this a lot for unit histories. Unfortunately, if you do want to go down this route, there is a cost, I think it's $8.99 a month for the subscription. However, you can get 60 days free if you use that code right there when you're signing up. And apart from being a good research tool, me and my family enjoy it because we like to do Audible books and we like to do ebooks. And you can join other sites like Audible or Kindle has a subscription program, but this one opens you up to like 1 million plus books in their library. And they're not all just research type books that we're going to talk about, but oftentimes bestsellers, maybe not the ones right on the bestseller book this month, but ones that have been on the best-selling book within the last year or so. So you may like it if you're a reader and want to have a way to access books apart from your library or from Audible or from Kindle. So here's a Scribd page, and I typed in 106th Infantry Division. I'm using this as an example. For instance, if you had a fallen who was in the 106th Infantry Division and maybe they were in the 423rd Infantry Regiment, which is one of the units inside the 106th, then you just can't find a lot of details about what they were doing. Scribd shows you right here, 1, 2, 3 books, maybe 4 books about the 106th Infantry Division. And down here under documents, there's a document called 106th Infantry Division. So that looks like it was made back in the 1940s. So I'm going to open this book here. And if I press the Start Reading button, it's going to pull up to the first page of here, but the really useful thing to do is press the search button here and maybe type in what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for the 423rd, I'm just going to type in that and see what shows up. So as I scroll down here, there's a number of references to the 423rd Infantry Regiment. And I can go and click on any of those pages and maybe find some information that I want to include in my story. So that's number one, is Scribd is a good niche tool you can use to do your World War II research. Okay, the next site I wanted to introduce you to is called the Hall of Valor Project. So this website here was created by a gentleman who's interested in documenting the awards, particularly the citations for those who served in the United States military. Not just from World War II, but from other engagements. And mostly are most successful with the awards that are of greater distinction. So obviously the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, and even down to the Silver Star. Sometimes you'll also find Bronze Star or other medals listed here. So I did a search here for George Gorbel. I found that he had a Silver Star that he earned. And so if I were to go here to this website, search his name in these boxes that have, his name, what war he was in, we can put the award we're looking for, or we can leave it blank and it'll pull up everything. And then we'll see what happens. He did show us having a listing here. And here we have the information about his Silver Star, and we actually have the citation. So if you can't find it somewhere else, it's always a good place to look for. So this is my number 2 selection for useful sites to do your World War II research. My number 3 useful site is American Air Museum, and this is really useful if you're doing any research on an airman. So in this case right here, I went to the American Air Museum and went to the Browse button and did a search for Harold O. Allensworth, because I knew he was an airman in Europe and I wanted to see if they had any information about him. So sure enough, there's an entry here. If I click on there, I know his service number if I don't have it somewhere else, his rank, his job within the airplane, you may not find that somewhere else. So it's nice to know what position he had. Sometimes there's photos, and we know that he was in the 487th Bomb Group, so you can find more information about that group by maybe Googling that, what bomb squadron he is. It's less likely to have bomb squadrons having a independent website, but you might find something there. And also very important, you have the number of his plane and the name of his plane. The tail number is very useful because you can do a Google search by the tail number and sometimes find some useful information just doing it that way. So that's my number 3 selection here, is American Air Museum. Okay, here's 3 more useful research sites, and these all have to do with plane crashes. Number 4, Aviation Archeology. This page here of the Aviation Archeology website lists a couple of different databases, the U.S. Army Air Force database and the U.S. Navy database. The Navy database is not divided by month, so you'd have to look up someone's name if you're going to see if you can find them, but the Army Air Force's is listed by month. So if you know the month that a plane went down, you can then look on this table here and say, we knew that that plane went down in September of 1942, and it's either stateside or overseas, so we're looking for a overseas site. We can press that, and then you can just use your search feature to maybe search by the serial number if you already know that, or maybe you know the date, or maybe you know it was a plane that went down. You know the plane that went down, but you don't have more details. You just know that it was a P-38 or any other plane. You just go here and you can do a search and it'll take you to that particular record. One thing that amazed me when I first became aware of this is there are lots of crashes, lots of downed planes. And it happened month after month throughout the whole war. So kind of sad to know that way, but there are some really great information that you can glean from this source, the Aviation Archeology Investigation and Research website. Next, for number 5, I'm going to show you about Pacific Wrecks. I'm on the chronology page of the Pacific Wrecks website here, and what might be helpful here is say that you started off with a flyer and you know the date that he died, but you don't have any more details than that. So you would just go to that month and just, if you knew he might have been in the Pacific, you would click on the month that you knew he died. And here we're going to have the dates of planes that went down on that date in the Pacific. So if you said, I know he went down on Friday, here you can see a list of some planes that went down. So Pacific Wrecks, a super useful website if it's for someone that was lost in the Pacific during World War II. Number 6, Aviation Safety Network. This is probably the least helpful of the 3 because it doesn't give you as much information, but if you can't find it anywhere else, it's at least worth a shot. See if maybe you can find the information on this website. So I'm here on the page of the Aviation Safety Network website that lists the years of crashes. So if I were to go and pick a year during World War II that I'm interested in, 1942, here's a consolidated PBY that went down on January 11th of 1942 at Pearl Harbor. So they were probably on a patrol and they just didn't make it back. And so if you had somebody that died on that date, you might look here. If you knew they were stationed in Hawaii, you might find out information about them. And it tells there was a crew of 5, and it says there were 3 fatalities, and there's even a short write-up right here. So this might be a useful website to find information about someone in a crash that you can't find somewhere else. Okay, here are the last 4 that I wanted to share. Let me go to that. If you look at the URL, it says a biblio, and they have lots of period articles that were written by the military, sometimes during the 1940s or a little bit afterwards. And if you're looking for details, in this case I'm on the page for the Marine Corps, you can just scroll down here and see what these articles are. So maybe you wanted to get some details on the Battle of Tarawa or the campaign in New Britain. You can click on that. It'll pull up the article that was created, and you can do a search. So maybe you're looking for 2nd Battalion of the 1st Marine Regiment. You could search by that, and you might be able to find exactly what that battalion was doing, because these are operational level descriptions in many cases. So there's one for the Marines. This is the one for the Navy. So again, you scroll down here and you see some of these documents they have off to the right. So if I have someone that was at the Battle of Eastern Solomon, I could click that. If I knew the hull number for his ship or the unit number for his plane group that he was in, I might be able to do a search using that and find details on what are some of the activities that person was engaged in on a unit level, a very small scale, a very granular level of information beyond what you sometimes get on Wikipedia, which might just be at a division or a ship level. This is the page for the Army Air Forces, and I don't use this as much because the Army Air Forces often have very useful information at the bombardment group level, but you can find some operations here that you could search if you wanted to find information from this source. This is the Army page, and they also have different documents that you can click onto if you want to learn more about them. Often good for the more minor campaigns or the ones that are not as well known in history. So if you wanted to read about the campaigns in the Marianas, or if you wanted to read about victory in Papua, you could click on that and there's going to be an extensive document on the regimental or battalion level that you might be able to glean some information about what the unit that your fallen person was in was doing at the time. So they got Pacific title ones, they have the Mediterranean theater, the main European theater of operation, China, Burma, just source documents. It's kind of hit and miss. You won't always find what you're looking for, but it's a source that you may want to look for if you can't find details on what was that fallen person's unit and where were they involved with during World War II. The next one I want to show you, number 8, is On Eternal Patrol, and this is exclusively for those who served in submarines. On the main web page of On Eternal Patrol, if you look on their menu on the left, it's going to say World War II boats. If you click on that, it's going to list all the World War II boats that had casualties, and you can just pick any of them. So if I want to look at the Flyer or the Growler or this one here, or let's pick the Herring. There's a photo of the ship, and over here is the names of all of the individuals that they know were on that ship on their final eternal patrol, and it even will tell you if there's a photo. So a great site if you're doing research for submariners. Number 9 is navalhistory.net, and this site doesn't have as much details as some of these others, but sometimes you have a name that for whatever reason you just haven't found details anywhere else. It's worth looking here to see if you can find some details. So on this page here, I'm on the list of United States Navy casualties from 1941 to 1942, and if I scroll down here, it's going to list them by date and what ship they were on, their name, their service number, and then some details about when they were lost. So these are some early losses actually before Pearl Harbor. The Reuben James was sunk by a U-boat on October 31st of 1941. And so if you can't find anything on, say, this individual, James Jerome Stelmach, then this might be a place where you can at least get started, and you'll have his serial number and his rank, and you'll know he was on the Reuben James. So that may be helpful. But you can see there's not a lot of information, but it'll at least get you something if you're kind of stumped anywhere else. Number 10 is the last one I want to share with you. It's a Field of Honor database put together by a group in Europe that's wanting to honor the Allied fallen in some of the cemeteries there. Here's the website, and it's divided by the different cemeteries that they're involved with. So if I were to pick Luxembourg, because I know the person I am researching is buried in Luxembourg, and I want to and maybe their name starts with an E, so I click on that, and maybe this is their name right here. I click on that, and it does give some information that may be useful in my research. So that's the Field of Honors database. So those are 10 useful databases that you wouldn't use for every name, but under certain circumstances you might. There's other websites out there, obviously. So I think I'll do an invite here in this YouTube video in the comments. If there are additional websites that are kind of ones you wouldn't use on everything, like Ancestry or newspapers or MyHeritage, but are more niche if you're having a particular thing you want to focus on, go ahead and add those in the comments and maybe the URL where people can find those. And that'll be an additional tool that our volunteers can use to write stories of the World War II fallen. Thanks so much, and good luck with your research.